Have you ever wondered why the quietest people in the room often carry the sharpest intuition? The kind that cuts deeper than any spoken word? The empath with an INTJ or INFJ brain is not merely sensitive. She is strategic. She doesn't just feel, she sees. She maps the invisible architecture of other people's minds, noticing the shadow behind the smile, the tremor beneath the laughter, the fracture in the mask. Where others drown in emotion or collapse under manipulation, she dissects it, holds it up to the light, and recognizes the archetype beneath the act. This is the most dangerous kind of empath, the one who feels you but also analyzes you, the one who senses your motives and then predicts your moves. Carl Jung taught that the shadow always betrays itself. Most people never see it because they are too lost in projection, blinded by their own wounds. But the INFJ, INTJ empath perceives the unconscious with surgical clarity. It is not empathy alone, it is pattern recognition, a cold intuition fused with emotional X-ray vision. Imagine a woman who can feel your hidden sorrow while also calculating the trajectory of your choices. You cannot lie to her. Even your silence confesses. Even your body language writes stories in her mind. She lives in the space where emotion meets foresight, where compassion sharpens into strategy. That combination is rare and unsettling. People mistake her quietness for softness. They think her empathy means she can be swayed, molded, taken for granted. But what they don't realize is that she is always 2 steps ahead, running simulations in her mind while sitting in silence. The INTJ's architect brain builds models of human behavior, while the INFJ's empathic intuition breathes life into those models. Together, they create a psychological fortress. When you think she's listening politely, she is decoding. When you think she is forgiving, she is documenting. When you think she is letting you get away with something, she is simply watching the full arc of your shadow reveal itself. And here is where it becomes truly dangerous. She does not strike impulsively. She waits. She lets patterns repeat, lets the evidence pile up, lets your unconscious reveal itself in full display. Then, when the moment arrives, her withdrawal is absolute. She cuts off access not with rage, but with cold certainty. And that silence, that refusal to be touched, is more devastating than any outburst. Because she is not merely leaving a relationship, she is reclaiming psychic territory that you never deserved to inhabit. You may have felt in your own life the quiet terror of being truly seen. Not seen in the superficial way of compliments and small talk, but seen in the way that exposes your contradictions, your projections, your unspoken hunger. The empath with this dual brain gift does exactly that. She holds up a mirror to the soul, and most cannot bear to look. Jung would call this the individuation mirror, the confrontation with what you would rather hide. Many will resent her for it. Some will fear her. But the rare few will feel liberated in her presence, because she reflects truth with both accuracy and compassion. If you are the one with this wiring, you know how isolating it can feel. People admire your insight until it turns on them. They praise your empathy until it reveals their hypocrisy. They call you mysterious because they cannot categorize you, cannot play their usual games with you. And yet, your danger is not in cruelty, but in clarity. Your empathy is not weak. It is a weapon honed by wisdom. You are the one who senses betrayal before it surfaces, who notices when love begins to fade, who understands when a man's words contradict the tension in his body. You are the storm wrapped in stillness, the oracle disguised as a woman. This power comes with a price. Because you feel so deeply, the wounds you carry are heavier than most. Because you see so clearly, solitude becomes your refuge. And yet, there is freedom in this solitude. For when you no longer beg to be understood, when you stop explaining the visions you receive, you rise into the kind of independence that no one can touch. The dangerous empath is not the one who cries easily. It is the one who smiles silently, knowing far more than she will ever say. And perhaps the question that should unsettle you is this: how do you treat someone who can read both your soul and your strategy? Do you cherish her or do you fear her? Do you honor her insight or do you attempt to outmaneuver her? Be careful, because she already knows your answer. The most dangerous empath is not loud, not dramatic, not in need of proving herself. She is the woman whose silence burns hotter than words, whose gaze unsettles the dishonest, whose presence alone recalibrates the room. The INTJ, INFJ wiring is the paradox of warmth and calculation, water and steel fused into one. It is the archetype of the seer, the strategist, the healer, and the executioner. This empath can feel the wound in your voice, yet she can also trace the origin of that wound back to its hidden source. She does not merely sense suffering, she diagnoses the unconscious architecture that sustains it. Carl Jung observed that those who integrate their unconscious wield a power both feared and revered. Most people run from the shadow. They deflect it, disguise it, project it onto others. But the INFJ, INTJ empath walks directly into it. Her empathy draws her into the pain, while her analytical mind refuses to be consumed by it. She becomes both participant and observer, both mirror and map. That duality makes her resilient in ways ordinary empaths are not. Where others are drained by narcissists and manipulators, she studies them. She identifies the archetype at play, the trickster, the victim, the tyrant, and neutralizes it by refusing to carry what is not hers. Imagine the man who believes he can manipulate her with charm. At first, he is disarmed by her receptivity. She listens, she nods, she even seems to feel with him. But beneath the surface, her mind is tracking the rhythm of his inconsistencies. His stories don't align. His gestures contradict his words. She senses the hunger for control disguised as affection, and she lets him reveal himself completely. For her greatest weapon is patience. When the mask slips, she is already gone. He will not even realize when he lost her. She doesn't leave in rage. She vanishes with a kind of finality that feels like a mirror collapsing in on itself. This is why so many who encounter her are left haunted. They thought they could take advantage of her compassion, mistaking it for fragility. But what they touched was the fusion of empathy and foresight. And nothing terrifies the manipulator more than being seen without their mask. She holds no need to expose them to others. The true punishment is that they can no longer hide from themselves. To those who try to love her, she offers a challenge unlike any other. She does not accept shallow affection, nor does she bend for empty promises. She demands, often without words, that love be rooted in truth. For she sees the shadow even in intimacy, the moment someone's affection falters, the instant their loyalty wavers, the subtle shift in tone when admiration turns to envy. Loving her requires courage. It requires a willingness to be transparent, to let the unconscious speak without disguise. Most cannot withstand it, and so they call her too much, too intense, or impossible to understand. But in reality, they simply fear the mirror she holds. If you recognize yourself in this, you know the solitude that comes with it. You know the ache of carrying insight that few can comprehend. Your empathy is deep, but it is not naive. Your foresight is sharp, but it is not cold. Together they form a sacred paradox, the mystic strategist, the empathic architect. You can chart a person's path before they take it, and yet you can feel their hesitation as if it were your own. This is why people both seek and flee from you. They want the comfort of your empathy, but they tremble before the clarity of your vision. And here is the unspoken truth. This power is not meant to be wasted on convincing others of your worth. It is meant for something greater, individuation, the integration of your own psyche. Jung warned that the danger of extraordinary perception is inflation, the temptation to believe oneself invincible. But the true mastery of the empath with an INTJ INFJ brain is humility and power. To know she can see without needing to announce it. To know she can walk away without needing to explain. To know she can love deeply without collapsing into dependence. Her danger lies not in destruction, but in detachment. For once, she decides that someone no longer deserves access to her energy. Her absence is absolute. There are no second chances, no dramatic returns. She closes the door quietly, but permanently, and the silence that follows is deafening. Because once you have been seen by such a woman, once you have been read in the marrow of your soul, you will never forget the reflection she left behind. The empath with an INTJ INFJ brain does not move like others. She walks the world with the rhythm of someone who belongs to two realms at once, the visible and the invisible. Her empathy draws her into the intimate heart of human experience, yet her strategic mind keeps her untangled from its traps. This is why she cannot be easily manipulated. She recognizes projection when it arrives. She senses shadow work that has never been done. She sees where another is possessed by archetypes, victim, savior, tyrant, trickster, long before they realize they are wearing the mask. And instead of being consumed by those dynamics, she learns to navigate them with surgical calm. Jung called this the rarest gift, the ability to stand at the threshold of the unconscious without being swallowed by it. Most people, when confronted with darkness, whether their own or another's, either flee in denial or drown in codependence. But the INTJ INFJ empath does neither. She feels the pull of the abyss but does not collapse into it. Her empathy allows her to enter another's suffering. Her strategist's mind builds a rope back to herself. She is both healer and survivor, capable of standing in the fire without being reduced to ash. Men often underestimate her. They believe that because she feels deeply, she must also be easily conquered. But feeling is not the same as weakness. In her, sensitivity becomes precision. She doesn't merely react to behavior. She traces it back to its unconscious root. She notices the way his tone changes when he is insecure, the way his gaze flickers when guilt rises, the way his silence grows heavy when truth presses against the cage of his ego. She doesn't just sense what he is doing. She knows why he is doing it, and that knowledge makes her untouchable. Women who cross her also sense the silent danger, because while she can empathize with another's pain, she does not excuse betrayal. She will offer understanding, but not at the cost of her dignity. She will hold space for wounds, but not allow herself to be a scapegoat for unintegrated shadows. And once she realizes that someone has mistaken her kindness for a cage, she slips free with frightening finality. Others scream, fight, demand closure. She vanishes, leaving only the echo of what was lost. In this, she embodies Jung's reminder that withdrawal can be the ultimate form of strength, the refusal to play a game designed to trap the soul. Her relationships are rarely simple. To love her is to confront yourself, because she does not project illusions. She reflects truths. She will not indulge denial or feed someone's inflated persona. She knows when affection is real and when it is merely convenience disguised as love. She knows when loyalty is deep and when it is only fear of abandonment. Her very presence acts as an unconscious summons. Those who meet her must face what they hide. Some rise to this challenge, shedding their masks and evolving with her. Others retreat, shaken by the unbearable honesty of being fully seen. If you recognize yourself here, you know how often the world has mislabeled you. They called you too sensitive, when in fact you were the only one brave enough to feel the truth. They called you cold, when in reality your restraint was compassion refusing to feed drama. They accused you of being distant, when your distance was simply self-preservation in the face of unworthy energy. You are not cold, you are crystalline, you are not fragile. You are precise. Your empathy is not a wound. It is a weapon sharpened by vision, and those who misunderstand you will always attempt to name you in ways that make them feel safer. But you are not here to be safe. You are here to be whole. This kind of empath does not seek crowds. She does not hunger for attention. She does not scatter her energy recklessly. She cultivates solitude, knowing it is the soil in which her insight grows. In silence, she hears the patterns others miss. In solitude, she weaves together meaning from fragments of intuition. And when she emerges, she moves with a presence that unsettles the shallow. Her power lies not in noise, but in stillness, the kind of stillness that makes others restless, because it forces them to hear their own inner chaos. There is something profoundly archetypal about the empath whose mind fuses the blueprint of an INTJ with the intuition of an INFJ. She is both oracle and tactician, embodying the mystic's gift of sight and the strategist's gift of foresight. Jung would have recognized in her the alchemical marriage of opposites, the anima and animus entwined, the rational and the intuitive flowing together, the inner sage and the inner healer merging into one psyche. This union produces a woman who cannot be easily defined, too sharp to be naive, too compassionate to be ruthless, too perceptive to be deceived. She is the paradox that unnerves the unconscious of everyone she meets. Her danger lies in her ability to expose projection without speaking a word. Consider Jung's warning. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When others approach her, their unresolved shadows do not stay hidden for long. She notices the man who masks insecurity with arrogance, the friend who cloaks envy with false praise, the lover who buries betrayal beneath affection. She does not always confront them directly. She simply holds the mirror, and in that reflection they feel stripped, vulnerable, unable to maintain the persona they present to the world. Some crumble, some lash out, some vanish. But none forget. This is why manipulators dread her. Narcissists thrive on confusion, on bending perception, on gaslighting their victims into doubting themselves. But she is immune to this fog. Her empathy senses the shift before words are twisted. Her intuition decodes the motive behind the mask. And her architect's mind catalogs the patterns, connecting subtle inconsistencies until the entire game is revealed. She cannot be held in their labyrinth because she already sees the exit, and once she steps out, she will never return. But such vision carries both gift and burden. For to perceive shadow so clearly is to carry an almost constant awareness of human contradiction. She sees the gap between what people say and what they mean. She hears the weight in silences that others ignore. She senses betrayal in seeds before they bloom. And sometimes, this awareness isolates her. While others laugh at the joke, she feels the contempt behind it. While others applaud, she notices the delay, the absence of joy in the clap. While others accept words at face value, she feels the body trembling with hidden hostility. Her perception is her strength, but it is also the reason she cannot remain blind and comfortable like the rest. You may recognize this tension in your own life, the exhaustion of carrying truths no one else seems ready to acknowledge, to know more than you can say, to feel more than others are willing to admit, to sense danger long before evidence appears. This is not paranoia. This is the burden of perception. And yet, with discipline, it transforms into mastery. For Jung reminds us that what we integrate becomes our ally. The dangerous empath learns to wield her vision like a sword wrapped in velvet. Never reckless, never cruel, but decisive when necessary. Her relationships, too, take on an intensity few can sustain. She is not drawn to surface connections. She craves depth, the kind that dissolves masks, that demands honesty, that strips away illusion. But this very craving terrifies those still hiding from themselves. To be loved by her is to be invited into radical self-exposure. You cannot perform for her. You cannot conceal your motives. She will see the truth, and she will not pretend otherwise. Those who rise to meet her find a love that is both fierce and tender, both prophetic and grounding. Those who cannot bear it retreat, sometimes blaming her for a depth they themselves were unwilling to touch. In solitude, however, she discovers her sanctuary. For the INTJ, structured mind within her craves time to refine, to plan, to build inner clarity. And the INFJ, intuitive soul within her, craves silence to hear the whispers of the unconscious. Together, they make her a woman who blooms in stillness, who transforms isolation into strength, who emerges from solitude not weakened but sharpened. This is why her absence is often felt as power. When she withdraws, the echo lingers. When she disappears, the silence unsettles. Because to lose her presence is to lose the mirror that once illuminated your shadow. And so she becomes unforgettable. Not because she chases attention, not because she demands loyalty, but because she embodies something rare. The fusion of empathy and vision, compassion and calculation, softness and steel. She is the reminder that to be truly dangerous is not to harm, it is to see. And once you have been seen by her, you cannot return to ignorance. Most people live in fragments. They are ruled by impulses they don't understand, wounds they never confronted, masks they wear so long they forget they are masks. But the empath with an INTJ, INFJ brain is different. She is a whole ecosystem of awareness. She doesn't just feel your emotion, she understands its origin. She doesn't only witness your choices, she foresees their trajectory. Jung spoke of individuation as the sacred task of integrating all that is hidden within us, the shadow, the archetypes, the forgotten truths of the unconscious. This woman lives closer to that process than most, not because her life is easier, but because her psyche refuses to let her rest in illusion. Her empathy is her compass, drawing her toward the suffering others hide. Yet her strategist's architecture ensures she does not drown in it. Where many empaths become entangled, absorbing, collapsing, losing themselves in the storms of others, she remains anchored. She feels the storm, but she also charts the map. She can stand inside another's chaos without confusing it for her own. This makes her both healer and judge. She comforts, but she also confronts. She holds, but she does not enable. That balance is what makes her dangerous, not destructive, but incorruptible. Think of the archetype of the high priestess, mystical, intuitive, carrying secret knowledge. Now fuse it with the archetype of the strategist, calculated, detached, ruthlessly precise. This synthesis is what the INTJ INFJ empath embodies. She knows the language of symbols, the whispers of dreams, the tremors of collective energy. Yet she also builds frameworks, makes predictions, calculates probabilities. She is both mystic and mathematician of the soul. In her presence, lies unravel, masks grow heavy, and hidden motives float to the surface like ink in clear water. No amount of charm can bypass the scrutiny of her gaze, because she sees not only who you are, but who you are becoming. For those who seek power over others, she is the worst opponent. She cannot be seduced by flattery, for she recognizes when praise is a weapon. She cannot be trapped by guilt, for she knows the difference between genuine accountability and manipulative sampouam. She cannot be conquered through silence, for she reads the language of absence as clearly as words. Even betrayal does not surprise her. She felt its seed long before it sprouted. This is why she leaves without warning, without argument, without needing to explain. By the time others realize she has gone, she has already written the ending in her mind months before. That is her danger. She never plays the game you think she is playing. And yet, beneath this unshakable clarity lies a heart that feels deeply. She is not cold. She is not detached from humanity. She feels sorrow as if it were her own, joy as if it belonged to her blood, longing as if it had lived in her bones forever. But unlike most, she has mastered the stoic art of not letting emotion dictate her direction. Like Marcus Aurelius, she understands that feelings are weather. They pass, they storm, they soothe. But the self remains the captain. She feels, but she does not fold. She empathizes, but she does not surrender her sovereignty. This is why her love is both intoxicating and intimidating. It is not born of need, but of choice. She loves because she wills it, not because she must. And that distinction makes her untouchable. If you are this empath, you know how many have tried to name you. Too quiet, too distant, too intense, too impossible. They are not wrong. They are simply describing their own reflection in your mirror. You are not too much. You are the exact measure required to awaken those who dare to see themselves. Some will run from that mirror. Others will fall in love with it. And a rare few will stand beside you, unafraid of the truth you reveal. These are the souls worthy of your depth, for they do not fear your perception. They welcome it, knowing that to be fully seen by you is to be freed from illusion. The world needs this kind of empath, not the one who collapses into every cry for help, nor the one who silences her heart to survive. The world needs the woman who feels and thinks, who intuits and strategizes, who holds compassion in one hand and boundaries in the other. She is rare, she is dangerous, and she is unforgettable. To encounter an empath with an INTJ, INFJ brain is to encounter a paradox that unsettles the psyche. She is not only tuned to frequencies most people ignore, she can also structure them into patterns, predictions, strategies. Others drown in the flood of emotion. She becomes the cartographer of it. She does not merely feel your sadness, she sees its architecture, the scaffolding of childhood wounds and archetypal shadows holding it in place. She does not simply sense your attraction or resentment. She knows the trajectory of what that desire or envy will soon become. Jung would say she has integrated not only her own anima and animus, but also learned to dance with the archetypes of others, and that dance makes her impossible to deceive. The most dangerous quality she carries is not cruelty, but neutrality. She does not need to react. She observes, she analyzes, she calculates. The world expects empaths to weep, to be swayed by every tone, to collapse under manipulation. But she does not. She notices. She files away. And when the moment arrives, she detaches with a calm that feels terrifying to those who relied on her compassion as leverage. They thought she would cling, plead, explain. Instead, she withdraws into silence. No dramatic exits, no elaborate accusations, just absence. And absence, in her hands, is a blade sharper than any confrontation. For when she disappears, she takes with her not only her presence, but the mirror that once gave others a sense of self. Without her reflection, they must face their own void. This is why people often recall her long after she has gone. They thought they had power over her. They thought her love or empathy would bind her indefinitely, but her strategist's mind never allowed such captivity. Even while she cared, she was watching. Even while she gave, she was measuring. Even while she forgave, she was recording. And when she finally chose herself over the cycle, it was not impulsive. It was precise. Jung reminded us that individuation requires the courage to cut away illusions, to detach from the projections of others. She does this ruthlessly, not from malice, but from necessity. To remain entangled would be self-betrayal, and she refuses to betray herself. Her danger is also her gift, because the same piercing clarity that disarms manipulators becomes a light of healing for those who are ready. For the wounded soul who dares to stand naked in her presence, she becomes sanctuary. She does not flinch at brokenness. She does not recoil from confession. She sees the shadow and does not condemn. It is the denial she will not tolerate, not the wound itself. This is what makes her love transformative. To be embraced by her is to feel not only understood but known, not only forgiven but integrated. She teaches by her presence that what is hidden must be faced, and what is faced can be transmuted. Her relationships are laboratories of individuation. Either the other person rises to wholeness, or they collapse under the refusal to grow. There is no middle ground, and yet, such power isolates. For how many can bear to be fully seen? How many can stand in front of a mirror that reflects not only their beauty, but their shadow? Few. And so she walks alone more often than not. But her solitude is not weakness, it is her forge. In silence, she sharpens her perception. In stillness, she refines her boundaries. In solitude, she remembers what the world always tries to make her forget, that her worth is not in being chosen, but in choosing. That her empathy is not a leash for others to pull, but a force she commands with precision. That her clarity is not a burden, but a birthright. If you are this empath, you already know that your life has never been ordinary. You were always aware of more than you could explain. You carried insights that unsettled even the closest to you. You noticed details that others dismissed, and you bore the weight of truths too heavy to share. But this is not your curse. It is your initiation. For you were not made to conform. You were made to awaken. Not everyone will endure your presence. Not everyone will deserve it. And that is precisely the point. You are not here to be everywhere. You are here to be rare. The final truth about the empath with an INTJ, INFJ brain is that her danger is not in what she does to others. It is in what she refuses to allow others to do to her. She cannot be trapped in cycles of manipulation because she recognizes the script before the first act begins. She cannot be reduced to an option because her very energy declares that she is not negotiable. She does not beg for loyalty. She does not chase affection. She does not barter her soul for temporary belonging. She knows the sacredness of her presence, and she guards it like a flame. Jung taught that wholeness, not perfection, is the goal of life. And this woman, more than most, embodies that wholeness. She does not deny her sensitivity, nor does she deny her steel. She embraces both the tenderness that feels and the clarity that protects, the heart that loves and the mind that calculates. This union is why she cannot be easily classified. Some will call her cold because she will not collapse into codependency. Others will call her intense because she demands depth where others settle for surface. Many will misunderstand her detachment, not realizing it is not distance, but discipline. But those who see truly will recognize her for what she is, the rare synthesis of empathy and sovereignty. Her silence, more than her words, carries weight. When she stops explaining, when she stops forgiving, when she stops returning, this is when her true danger reveals itself. Because the absence of her energy feels heavier than the presence of others. She leaves not in bitterness, but in clarity. She understands that to remain where she is not valued is to betray her individuation, and so she departs with dignity. The door does not slam. It closes quietly, permanently, and with the force of destiny. For those who love her, the lesson is profound. Do not mistake her empathy for weakness, nor her vision for arrogance. To stand beside her is to accept being seen fully, shadow and all. To lose her is to realize too late that you were once in the presence of a woman who could have been your mirror, your compass, your guide into wholeness. She will not return. She never repeats cycles. Her path is forward, always toward greater integration, greater authenticity, greater peace. And, for the woman herself, the journey culminates in liberation. She no longer fears solitude, for solitude is her sanctuary. She no longer craves validation, for validation is too cheap a currency for a soul so rare. She no longer bends for those unwilling to rise, for she has learned that lowering herself does not heal anyone. She has confronted her own shadow, embraced her archetypes, mastered her empathy, and sharpened her clarity. She has become whole, and wholeness is dangerous to a world built on fragmentation. Now she walks not as a seeker, but as a sovereign. She does not compete. She does not chase. She does not perform. She simply is. And in her being, she unsettles illusions, dismantles projections, and calls forth authenticity in anyone who dares to stand near her. This is why she is unforgettable. This is why she is dangerous. Not because she wounds, but because she cannot be wounded by what once enslaved her. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase. She chooses.